Good morning. Today I want to talk to you about grinder use. I have said this often, and it is my professional opinion and input that an angle grinder and an oxy-fuel hand cutting torch are two of the most misused pieces of equipment in a welding and fabrication facility. And today I want to talk to you about some things that I have learned along the way that will help you to use this piece of equipment safely and ensure that it has a long lasting life. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we choose the correct size of grinder for the job that we're doing. Grinders range from 4-inch all the way up to 9-inch, and they vary in amperage, and they are designed for light duty up to heavy duty applications. So the first thing I want you to notice is how these grinders are resting. I often see in my line of work when I'm out on jobs or at locations certifying or training welders, I see grinders being put face down. Excuse me. And one of the reasons that we don't want to do that is it's unsafe, number one, and number two, it invites a situation for cross-contamination. So this is a carbon steel table, and I may be working on a piece of equipment that is aluminum or stainless that can't come in contact with carbon steel. And so if I lay this grinder down, there is a possibility for this disc to come in contact with this carbon steel table, and then I turn around and use it on aluminum or stainless, and now I have contaminated that object that I'm working on. And so you never want to lay a grinder face down. The other reason that you don't want to do that is because many grinders have a paddle switch. This type of grinder has a side switch, a sliding switch, so the likelihood of it turning on is very unlikely. But if you have a paddle switch type grinder and the little locking mechanism, safety guard, is broken, that can actually depress that trigger. And I've seen grinders take off across fab tables. I've seen it many times. And so you always want to set a grinder on its backside. Almost, not everyone, but almost every grinder I've seen has either 2 feet or a solid foot that is designed by the manufacturer, whether they realize it or not, to set that grinder down safely with the attachment facing up. So before you use a grinder, you want to make sure and inspect it very well. You want to inspect the body of the grinder. You want to inspect the head where the screws attach, the gear mechanism. You want to make sure all that is in good working order. There's not a bunch of loose vibration or slack in that gear. You can actually take this off and put grease in here to increase the longevity of these. You want to check your guard, make sure it's tightened, make sure it functions correctly, which, by the way, you want to make sure you have a guard on your grinder. That is very unsafe to operate a grinder without a guard, and I see people do it all the time. You want to inspect the body of it, make sure there's no excessive burns that are going to cause any kind of damage. You want to inspect your cord, make sure there's no frays or no burn marks. These things have a very rough life, and it's important to make sure that there's no electrical wires exposed that might cause some electrocution. The next thing I want to point out is the side of the grinding disc or the attachment that should be used and that should never be used. So when you're looking at the back of a grinder, this disc rotates counterclockwise. And this is a law of physics, that anything that comes in contact with a rotating device, they behave differently on this right side. So I'm looking at it this way. Anything that comes in contact with this rotating object on this side from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock is safe, and it behaves differently than anything that comes in contact with it after 6, before 12 over on this left side. So this left side is very dangerous when it's rotating clockwise. This, if you use a grinding disc or a wire wheel or a cutoff wheel and you use the left side, you are exposing yourself to a potential kickback that could injure you. It could shatter this grinding disc, or it could cause a kickback of the grinder, and you do not want that to happen. I've seen some bad accidents from that. So I wish the manufacturers would not even design these to where it allowed for the guard to go on this side, because that means you're now able to use this side of the disc. Always put a grinder guard, put the guard on the left side, covering the left side of the disc, because you don't want to use that side of the disc anyhow. And so that puts it off limits. And so now you can use the safe side. Now, there's also, if you'll notice, a threaded port right here, threaded hole, to where you can put a handle in this side of the grinder. So, if you never want to use the left side of the grinding disc for safety reasons, that means the guard should always go over here. That means you never, ever, ever want to put a handle on this side of it, because doing so now means that you can expose your fingers to the exposed portion of the grinding disc. So again, I wish manufacturers would not even put an opportunity to put a handle here. There should not be a hole or a threaded hole right there at all. You should only put a handle on a grinder on the left side. I've said this for years, and I'll say it again. There is no such thing as a left-handed grinder. Your left hand only goes right here because you need the disc guard right here so that you can't use this side of the blade, and now your hand is protected and your fingers are protected from the blade. And then you operate it with your right hand. There's not two ways to use this grinder safely. There's only one way. Guard over the left side of the disc, handle where your hand can be protected by the guard. That's the only way to safely use this grinder. And then once again, always set it down on the back. Okay? So whether you use a handle or not, always put that guard over the left side of the blade so it will protect you from any kind of kickback. Very important. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is grinding sparks. I often see individuals grinding and throwing sparks up into the air. And this is a terrible idea. You, as the operator of this grinder, have 360 degrees that you can control where those sparks come off of. And if you put the guard in the right location, now you've narrowed it down to half that, okay? You want to always seek to throw your grinding sparks horizontally. Try to never go above the horizon and up into the air, because they go up in the air and they either come down and land on you or they land on the people around you. And I've worked in unsafe conditions where welders will operate that grinder and shoot sparks all around and not care where they go or who they land on. And those are not pleasant places to work, and they're very unsafe. So you don't want to be rooster tailing up into the air. You want to seek to keep your grinding sparks horizontal or down at the ground is my preference. And make sure you have good balance and good stance on your legs, good body positioning, holding the handle with your left hand, operating it with your right, and then using the right hand side of the disc, the rotating side, that's safer, and ensuring that your grinding sparks go down toward the ground. And so these are some things that I've learned throughout the years that will help you to not only operate an angle grinder safely, but you'll also be safer to work around in a fabrication and welding environment, and people won't mind working around you. So thank you for watching this video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at On-Site Certification. We have an info email at info@onsitecertification.com, or you can contact me personally at jeb@onsitecertification.com. Thank you.